what Zoom does now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I am Carrie Friedberg, the SF Money Coach. I'm a personal finance and small business money coach, financial behavior specialist, and financial literacy educator. I recently launched a do-it-yourself personal finance 101 online course with 25 mini lessons on the practical and emotional sides of money. And it comes with a membership site where you can learn, practice, connect, and receive support for an entire year. You can read all of the details at sfmoneycoach.com/membership. Please join me in welcoming our guest today, Mikelann Valterra. Mikelann and I met in a virtual classroom. I was a trainee student and in a money coaching program, and she was one of my instructors. I was also a client of Mikelann's for many years, and now we're friends and colleagues. And Mikelann, is it true that we've never met in person?
It's so funny. I remember us debating that when we were setting this up, and I've been thinking, but oh my God, Carrie, I think you might be right.
I know.
Isn't it weird?
It's so odd to know someone so well. And
I know.
yeah.
I guess that's a good side of technology, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Mikelann is based in Seattle. She is an author, speaker, trainer, and master money coach. Her passion is to help professional women escape the money fog, feel more in control of their finances, and create a life they love. As a financial psychology expert, she has appeared on countless radio shows, podcasts, television spots, and has been quoted in blogs, newspapers, all over the country. She brings a deep understanding of psychology and human potential to the fields of personal finance and the emotional language of money. If it's time to make money in an intentional way and live your best life, you're in the right place with Mikelann. She is the Seattle Money Coach. She's the founder of the Women's Earning Institute. She has a master's degree in counseling psychology and a bachelor's in economics. She co-founded the Money Minder online fintech company, and she's been in private practice for 23 years. Just wow.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Wow.
No, listen to that. She's joined me today to talk about one of our mutual favorite topics, earning. So welcome, Mikelann.
Oh, thank you so much. Hello from Seattle down to the Bay Area. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay. And for our listeners and live attendees, if questions come up during our conversation, please type them into the chat or write them down. We'll reserve time at the end to hear from you. So to start things off, Mikelann, please share with us a little bit about your background and family history around money.
Background and family history. Well, what's the shortest sum up? I was born in, as they say, the hot summer of '69. I was born when my dad was away in Vietnam. And so I'm a Nam baby. About half my friends, believe it or not, are Nam babies born during the war when our fathers were away. So we did not grow up with a lot of money is the short story. He later became an officer, but we were raised, poor is going to push it too much, Carrie, but we definitely were raised, let's say, lower socioeconomic class, right? We did the best that we could. And, over the years, my family definitely did better and better. Eventually, my parents finished college. Eventually, my dad became an officer. But, growing up, we were on food stamps and a lot of different, government money. And I had the most wonderful, loving parents. And it's so interesting working with people's money stories. And of course, we're talking about my own.
Right.
I never knew, and I'm so sorry, Carrie, I didn't unplug one of my ringers here.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, I never knew growing up that we didn't have money. It's so interesting looking back, like I didn't know that we were, we just didn't have a lot because there was a lot of love and everything was fine, So when I think about so many different people's money stories, so much is, from our mindset, as we all know, comes from how we were raised. And I do feel fortunate that my parents were so loving and so supportive and did the best they could and got very creative with what we had. So
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. And do I remember that? I think I've heard you call yourself a military brat, or did you move a lot as a child?
yeah, we did. Yeah, we moved every 3 years. Yeah, we moved every 3 years to different bases.
Right.
And and like I said, my dad eventually went through what's called OCS. He was a private in Vietnam, but eventually came back, finished college, and became an officer. So,
Okay.
as I grew up, we moved around at different military bases. His dad went from being, a captain to, I mean, he rose through the ranks. So
Right.
it's in many ways the American success story in some ways,
Yeah.
and yet we were on government food stamps when I was younger. So we moved a lot.
Yeah.
We moved eventually back to Seattle. There was a military base in Seattle that most even Seattleites don't know,
Oh,
because it was decommissioned about 15 years ago. It was called Fort Lawton. So,
okay. Yeah.
yep, but I'm a Seattle girl.
I mean, moving that much it helps you to develop a special skill set. Not only does it sound like your parents were thinking outside of the box and finding creative solutions to their needs, but you also, as a child, had to learn how to adapt and fit in and make connections and friends on kind of a 3-year cycle. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And again, as kids, we take all of it for granted, right?
Mhm.
And so many of my parents' skills around money, again, of course, I took it for granted, right? I mean, I remember, I mean, you'll like this. I remember a few years ago finding what I thought was an quote antique in my mother's basement. Oh, Mom, I remember this amazing end table when we were children. Oh my goodness, that must be worth so much money.
Yeah.
And the truth is she bought it, as she said, well, honey, I bought that for $2 at a garage sale. We didn't really have any money, but I painted it, and I went and I got glass from the auto store that was on sale, and I made the end table that I grew up with thinking was this
I know.
antique, right?
Isn't
She's
that
like, you can
amazing?
have it if you want, but I don't want you to think it's worth anything. Like,
Did you
okay.
take it? Did you?
It is safe and secure still in my mother's basement. I am debating it because I do love it, but
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a great story of like, okay, this is
Yes.
how I mean, my mom loved design and
Right.
she loved decor.
Mhm.
Um, and so how do you, I mean, you and I know as money coaches that this is such a tried and true theme in working with people around money. How do you meet your needs on less money? And she did.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Would you share with us your earliest memory about money?
So I was thinking about that, and one of my earliest memories, actually, I'm going to say this is my cheese memory, even
Okay.
like, what does that have to do with money? Um, when I was growing up, I didn't quite understand it, but as we know now as adults, the way kind of food stamps worked, and at the time government food programs worked, we would get a very, very large hunk of cheese,
Yeah.
government cheese. Some of your listeners may be able to identify with this because it's this huge rectangular massive block of
Okay.
cheese
Hmm.
that would be issued at the beginning of the month to families, right?
Hmm.
So we would get the hunk of cheese, and it would appear on a plate in our refrigerator,
Yeah.
and very much symbolized money. That's when you say, what's your first money memory? I have it so strongly linked to cheese because our family felt, not saying we felt wealthy when the cheese came, that's a bit of an overstatement, but
I know what you mean.
but
Yeah.
when the cheese appeared, I knew that's kind of like, oh, Mom and Dad just somehow got paid.
Right.
When the cheese appeared, it was like I was more likely to get some treats. I
Yeah.
was more likely to, maybe Mom would take me shopping. And there
Sure.
were tons of grilled cheese
Yeah.
sandwiches, which were like yummy, 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 yummy. And then as the month progressed, the big block got smaller and smaller and smaller.
I know.
So, so I could kind of tell where we were in the month in terms of a kid land, without thinking about dates or calendars, by just opening up the refrigerator and seeing how small the cheese how small the cheese block, and then we would somehow get wealthy again.
Right. Right.
The cheese would magically regenerate, and there'd be this huge fat block of cheese again. So that's my money memory. And again, I just heard my parents talking about, things are going well when we got the big hunk of cheese, which I'm sure they got tons of other things when the cheese came.
Yes,
But for me as a kid who loved the cheese block, it was all
of
about that.
course. Yes, and it was visceral and tangible and like right
Very-
at your sight line. And what a
Mhm.
great metaphor. Just, I mean, for life and tracking time, passing of time, watching.
all of it. I know, isn't that
Yeah.
fun? Yeah.
And even, yeah, it's a good metaphor for a bank account and like the cycle that people go through between paychecks,
Yeah. Yeah. When the money's done, when the money's gone, the money's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no cheese credit card. Yeah.
Yeah. So, right. So how did you get started helping people with money?
I mean, my family was always, I mean, I now would say good with money, but again, it's not something that in my family was talked about. In fact, I wished it was talked about more looking back. They dealt with everything kind of behind closed doors. When I went to college, I became really, really curious about money because I heard it talked about more. I ended up getting an undergraduate degree that was real heavy in economics because I was fascinated with it. At the time, I was convinced I was going to go to the Peace Corps. I was going to work in Latin America. I was going to work with, my family was very Catholic and we were very into what was called liberation theology. And so I was convinced that I was going to finish college with this degree in economics and I was going to move to Latin America and I was going to help the poor. And that was just very much the way my family was, super involved in a lot of poverty issues, particularly in that arena.
Right.
Long story short, I did not move to Latin America. Actually, that's not true. I did move to Latin America, but I came back.
Right.
That only lasted about 6 months. So I ended up with this degree in economics and didn't use it a lot because I wasn't certain what I wanted to do when I grew up. And eventually, a few years later, I went and got a master's in psychology.
Okay.
And I was so fascinated with money, Carrie, that I knew I wanted to combine it all. But I mean, you and I know now money coaching exists, but honestly, back in the late 90s, no one had ever heard of money coaching.
No.
I had no idea what it was. So when I finished my master's in psychology, I was still so fascinated in money and human potential and how it could help people that I just looked and looked and looked. I almost became a financial planner.
Right.
But I was absolutely fascinated with psychology and I debated going into psychotherapy. And it's like two totally different fields, like psychotherapy, financial planning. And eventually I met a woman who you and I both know well, Karen McCall, who was in many ways kind of the pioneer of money coaching in the United States. In fact, she wasn't even using the term money coaching.
Right.
But she had combined these areas of psychology and maybe let's call it financial literacy into this new field. And I just fell in love with the idea and decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a money coach.
Yeah.
And there you go. That was 25 years ago.
I know. And I know the story that you decided you were going to follow her around and attend every lecture and seminar. And Karen was somewhat on the circuit at the time because people, got word of this person that was talking about the intersection of really brain science and money and behavior.
Well, right. And at the time there was nothing else. I mean, what else was I going to study? When I think about the wonderful stuff that you've studied and some of the intense, programs that you've been through. Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. And 20 years ago, they didn't exist.
Right, exactly. These days, at some major state universities, particularly at Kansas State and one in Georgia, there are now departments. You can get a degree in personal finance. This is relatively new in the last 5 years. That wasn't a thing before.
Oh, no, you're so right. In fact, I think if it was 20 years ago, I probably would have been at Kansas State because they've got a lot of the cutting edge financial psychology programs and financial therapy programs. And come on, 20 years ago, there was no one that was offering financial therapy. You couldn't say that in the same sentence without people going, what?
Yeah, exactly. So I know you work with men and women, single couples and multi-generational families even. Um, and I think one of your specialties is working with women in particular. Tell me, why do you think women have so much difficulty making and managing money?
Oh my goodness, what a huge question. Yeah, and as you know, obviously a controversial question too. It's like, my, so I'll approach it kind of maybe a little bit backwards because right now, and we'll probably get more into earning stuff later, but we've all heard of the pay gap. Some people call it, all of this is related to the gender gap, but the wealth gap is huge between men and women. I mean, when you look at women in their 30s and men in their 30s, single women and single men, single men have 3 times as much money saved for retirement as single women. I mean, that's just, oh my God, Carrie, that's shocking. And
I know,
that's,
I have chills, like, and I
yeah,
feel like crying. Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's just massive, right? And and when I say 3 times, that's way, way more than the quote wage gap that people talk about, 80 cents on the dollar or whatever it is. So it does beg a lot of very serious questions of like, well, what is this? And partly why it is so complicated is, and I know all your listeners know, is that there is a piece that is outside of what we do. There absolutely is gender discrimination, and there is the glass ceiling, and there's a lot of history, a millennia,
Yeah.
of the different roles between men and women. And so people wish this subject was a lot simpler than it is. I think it's also why some people are afraid to wade into the topic because it can get pretty hot pretty fast,
Yeah.
Um, but there's also the part that we play in it as women. And I think a really interesting question is, why do women undersell themselves more than men undersell themselves?
Yes.
Do men undersell themselves sometimes? Yes, they do. Do all women undersell themselves? No, of course not, right? I mean, so these are broad brushstrokes, but it really goes into, I mean, this goes all the way down to like estrogen, and this goes down to the different ways that men and women are wired. If I had to pick one single thing, Carrie, which there's like 15, I would say that it's our relational nature, that women really are so in relationship that a lot of times our concern is, oh my gosh, we don't want to do anything that would cause someone to not like us or rock the boat or harm a relationship,
Right.
which is hugely wonderful, positive in a lot of ways. But it is one of the things that can hurt us in asking for as much money. It hurts us in negotiation, it hurts us in fee setting.
Yeah.
It hurts us in divorce when women give away so much more than they should because they're so focused on protecting their children as opposed to themselves.
Right.
So this relational piece comes out in a lot of different areas around money, and women are more and more aware of it and really getting really strong and really clear about sticking up for themselves around money.
Yeah.
It's probably why I brought up the wealth gap, because the pay gap is closing. It's not closed, and that's also very complicated. But the moment that people go, oh, that's not an issue anymore, why are we talking about this? That's then why I bring up the wealth gap. Like, if this isn't a really big issue, then why do single women have 1/3 the amount of money saved for retirement than single men?
Yes. I got a call from a friend that I know through my daughter's former preschool this week, and she said, I need help, can I talk to you? I'll pay you for a session, this and that. Well, I happen to be, because we're friends outside of this dynamic, picking up a mint plant from her house that day, and I was like, how about we chat in the driveway when I pick up the mint plant, and if you need more time or follow up, like, we can do a formal session another time, but you can at least tell me what's going on. Well, what was going on is that her husband is facing a significant sudden wealth event. He's selling his company that he's put his blood, sweat, and tears into. He's been promised, it's just paperwork and negotiation at this point, a lot of money, double-digit $1 million, etc. And she's like, I don't have any money. And I was looking at some of the paperwork that he shared with me, and he promised me one thing, but I couldn't find that in the paperwork. Like he screwed up, and it's not coming to the family, it's going into this other trust. And what do I do? And it was exactly what you're saying. Like, and my advice to her was, well, to contact an estate attorney and to get some good education on that level and talk to the professional who could help her with the language and the script for those conversations and some of the legal documents for the requests that she wanted to make. But also, it's about kind of seeing a doctor for the first time, like height, weight, blood pressure. Well, what accounts do you have in your name or jointly, and what are the balances, and taking that assessment. So step one, know where you are, be present with your money. And then from there, you can make requests like, when the payout happens, I would like X tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to be transferred to this account by this date, and being that clear. Because it gets blurry. She was a stay-at-home mom with the kids. That was her contribution to the business, which is priceless, as we know, and has a six-figure annual unpaid salary value. But yeah, that it just made me think of that it is just all too common. And yeah,
Well, and it's probably the deal that she and her husband made years ago. I mean, it's a classic division of labor, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, my parents made the same classic division of labor, and they both loved it. My mom loved being at home. My dad loved being the provider. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the division. The dilemma is these situations, right? Or in my family's case, when my parents did end up divorcing years later, long story short, my dad was able to retire early and my mom wasn't, right? Able to retire early. And where I go is, oh my God, that is not fair. But that's why it's so wonderful that this woman was saying, hey, wait. That is the story you just told is also the positive side of women's relational nature, because your friend brought it up. Your friend asked for help. Your friend asked for advice. She called you.
Yeah.
Right. She didn't say nothing and isolate, and because she reached out to you with that relational nature is going to be hugely helpful for her.
I know. Yeah, it was really like a right turn in her financial life, and she wants and deserves emotional and financial security, and they have a loving marriage. I mean, situations like this can ruin relationships, and we know the stats about over 50% divorce rate in the country, or even 75%, and that like money is always a problem in divorce. And so
and I'll throw in I can't help it. This is the ultimate depressing statistic. Are you ready, Carrie?
I'm ready.
9 out of 10 women end their lives alone.
Oh yeah, I know.
9 out of 10 women in their lives alone. And it's for all the reasons we know: divorce, widowhood, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, we have to make sure that we are taken care of. We cannot leave that to anyone else going, gosh, I sure hope that he handled all of that.
Exactly. No, I didn't know that exact stat. My mind is pretty blown right now. And it's biology that women tend to be healthier, just have a different, body and brain types that live longer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is. When I heard that stat, I was like, that can't possibly be true. But then as I stopped, I went, okay, wait, we all know that women live, I can't remember the exact number, 6, 7, 8 years on average longer than men. And I think that might be closing, but whatever that number is, it's still there. But when you add to that, women tend to marry men that are a little older than them. All of this is kind of synergistic, and and I would love to be like, okay, I am now alone, single, widowed, and I'm so happy in these final years. I've got my space and my time. This doesn't have to be a bad, sad, tragic thing.
Right.
I want to make sure that I've got resources to spend my final years in my world, just like happily reading by my fireplace and visiting all my friends. This is not a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that I have all the biscotti and chocolate I want. So
I know, exactly. I love that image of you. Yes, I it is amazing how this lifelong relationship with money is something my clients have all heard me say this before, that we have to face and embrace for the rest of our lives. And it doesn't necessarily end then. Children or not, married or not, doesn't matter what kind of legacy, like what are we leaving behind, and thinking all the way through, and then that's where it becomes a spiritual conversation, and it's confronting. Money can be that as confronting as death. And so, I know in our prep call, you shared with me 6 reasons women feel and behave with money as they do. And you mentioned one of them, which is focusing on others, the relational nature, as opposed to their selves. And another one of my mantras in sessions is, you have to look out for number one. No one else is going to do that. Even if they're in large families, even if there is a lot of money or marriage and promises. So that's one of my things. But can you share the other reasons we do what we do?
We do what we do. Yeah. And some of these are not isolated just to women, but these might be the reasons why people do what they do with their money. I'll just go through these real quick, because I mean, you know all these so well. But first one is our childhood experiences. So that's my cheese experience.
Yes.
Right? We so much of what our adult behavior is around money comes from what we call our money scripts, our money programming, right? If you grow up hearing your parents fight about money, kind of the classic and unfortunately common example, then oftentimes as adults, we grow up just assuming money's bad, money causes conflict, don't talk about money, stay away from money because it'll just cause a fight. Right.
Yes.
So that's a big one, for men and women, the way that we are raised around money and what we experience, huge impact.
Yes.
Yeah. Another one is, let's just call it lack of training around money. And again, it's so interesting when you kind of look at the latest research, because you would think that this is changing. What we find is that girls, and this is very current research, are taught a lot about budgeting, and boys are taught a lot about investing.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
So girls are taught about, make sure that you're really careful with the money that you have, which is great, because that isn't something that used to be taught as much. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But people are trying to figure out, like, why is this wealth gap so big? And they're trying to figure out, like, how is this possible? It's 2021.
Right.
How is this possible? Right.
But it's back to biology and the basic division of labor that many people assume and live into around, well, the woman manages the house,
Right.
and the grocery and the bills and the clothing and the children and everything. And then the man is out there earning, like hunting, and
Exactly.
not only earning, but taking care of it all for the whole family for the whole lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the metaphors sometimes I'll use with my clients, it's a sporting metaphor. There's offensive finance and defensive finance. We need both to win at the game of money, but offensive finance is earning money and investing. Defensive finance is don't lose the money you have.
Right.
That would be what we would call budgeting, working with a spending plan. And so we find that girls are raised taught defensive finance and boys are raised taught offensive finance. So and that's a simple way to say it, but that's what the research is showing, right? Another reason why there are differences does come down to brain chemistry. And again, that's going to be a hot button controversial thing to say, but that goes to relational nature. There is a reason why so many professional women off ramp and so many professional men don't. It's because so many of us want to be with our newborn babies. We want to be home in these formative years, right?
Yeah.
This is as old as time itself. And so what do we do with that? It's not a bad thing. Another reason why there are differences is just simply what I would call current life circumstances absolutely affects people, because you can have the perfect upbringing, but the way you decide to set up your marriage, or just life happens.
Yes.
Right? People are going to be very impacted by COVID and the pandemic. Life happens.
I would lob into that even education level, and school, in my opinion, doesn't stop at 18 or 21 at the typical benchmark ages, because then you're an adult, and wow, adulthood is like much harder than any of us ever knew until we got into it and made mistakes and had challenges. But hence the opportunity for ongoing personal development in any form of courses or therapy or 12-step groups, et cetera, et cetera. And I think if people don't continue to learn from experts or have that reflection from a community, then that would be challenging to just stay in your current life circumstances when adaptation and growth and expansion is happening all around them.
Oh, huge. I so completely agree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are some of the reasons why there are some differences. And, I mean, the more we talk, the more we can both hear and everyone listening can hear how complicated the subject is, right? Because there's just
Yes.
all these different pieces. And I just want to thread back real quick to something I said about, brain chemistry and women and money. I don't want your listeners to walk away thinking that I'm saying that feminine brain chemistry is somehow detrimental to helping us make money. There are huge positives too. The way the female brain is wired differently than the male brain gives us some special advantages
Yes.
around money as well, right?
Right.
Like you and I know, what's the obvious example would be in investing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That women investors tend to do better than men investors because women buy and hold. They don't churn their investments
Right.
much as men do, right? So
Yes.
all female investment clubs make more money than all male investment clubs.
I know. Isn't
So
it fascinating?
really
Yeah,
interesting, isn't it? It's
it
really
is.
interesting.
So you took at some point in your career all this interest and true passion, as well as your expertise and education on all of these topics and more, and you founded an institute, the Women's Earning Institute. What were the founding principles, or tell us why you did that?
I wanted to help women make more money. It was the bottom line. What I got really clear about is the fact that there is a piece that we play in underselling ourselves and really holding ourselves back. I mean, I didn't feel the need to be a one-word writer talking about gender discrimination and the wage gap. There's so much out there and it's such an important topic. But it can also start depressing you. When you look at what under earning is, which is the pattern of underselling yourself, the cool part of that, Carrie, is that I have control. There are
Right.
things that I do to undersell myself, which tells me there are things that I can do
Yes.
to earn more money. And my orientation around when I was setting up the institute was always very much around personal growth and human potential. Right. And I was the one who studied, the transpersonal psychology. Let's study Carl Jung and positive psychology and all that good stuff.
Yes.
So I wanted to use money and studying money as a way to up level our lives and step more and more into our potential.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a huge proponent of, whether you want to call it budgeting or spending plans or, whatever, looking at that side of the coin.
Yeah.
But I love the other side of the coin, which says, and what if we made more money?
Right.
And what's that about? And why are some people struggling with it? And, there's a lot of women that are married to under earning men. So this is not strictly
Right.
just for women, for sure.
Yes.
But the whole idea that there are reasons why we undersell ourselves and therefore we can come out of it was very exciting to me, to be able to teach people how to conquer under earning and have the end result be that then they made more money and that was life changing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that. So I wrote a book in 2004 that was published through New York called Why Women Earn Less, How to Make What You're Really Worth.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was, well, at the time it was the culmination of a lot of thought.
Yes.
That was a lot of years ago now, right? So since then, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that's come out on it, but I just think it's the most exciting topic from a human potential point of view.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Yes. And when people are facing a shortfall, typified by carrying debt month to month and or running out of money and literally not having enough to pay bills in full on time or to last between pay cycles, etc. I always say, and I must have learned this from you, that the first solution to a shortfall is to increase income, you know, and it's not always easy to do overnight, but it needs to be top of mind and something that in various forms I'm always working on with my clients. And even tracking when's the last time you got a raise or a promotion, and anticipating that, and who are the people you need to be having conversations with this fall for the January bonus cycle and that
Yeah.
type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you talk with all your clients about it. It's so huge. I mean, it's one of the support functions of people having a money coach is that you are supporting your clients in this endeavor. I mean, because, like the whole subject of raises, for example,
Yeah.
in most companies, asking for a raise is a 3 to 6 month process. I think there's
Right.
this feeling that, oh, it's a one-time event.
Yeah.
Not.
No.
It's not. There's a lot of groundwork, a lot of conversation, a lot of allies you need. A lot. Every organization has a different process. Yada
Exactly.
yada yada. Right. But to have the support and always be involved in looking at that is a big deal.
It is. And you have to rally the troops and be willing to stand up for yourself, like we were talking about earlier. And I always say, do the back of the envelope math to get real and tell the truth to yourself. And if you have a partner, great, you can get a second opinion about that, about how much money you really need to be taking home after all the deductions, after all the taxes. What does this really, really mean for your lifestyle, your budgeting categories? And so that's a step that most people skip or don't even know that they should do, but it's part of self-responsibility and going into any form of negotiation, conversation with real numbers and knowing what your bottom line is.
Oh, it's huge. Some people will ask me, what's the number one way to earn more money, and again, there's lots. But one of my favorite things I would say is know what you need, which is exactly what you just said, right?
Yes.
That to work with, I would say work with a full annual plan. Some of your clients may call it annual budget, same thing. But it's not a spending plan, it's an earnings plan, right?
Yes.
What do you want to spend this year? What do you need to spend this year? It's a combination of everything, your savings goals, your debt goals, your blah, 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 vacation, all of it. But when you add everything up at an annual level, what's that number, right?
Yeah.
You need to know what you want to earn. That goes a long ways towards actually earning it.
Yeah. And it's hard work. It's not a 5 minute, I call it back of the envelope math, but there's a bit of a process, a few hours at least of work to get a really true number,
Right.
and understand the kind of holistic view of your life, and especially including those tricky non-monthly expenses that are easy to forget or anticipate or build into that number, in addition to savings goals, the need to save, which is completely natural.
Right. Right.
Have you ever been an under earner in your life? Did you ever resonate with that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think how do they say it? You often teach what you most need to learn, right? Yeah, I would love to say, no, I've never under earned, but that would be bull. Yeah. I mean, I can trace it all the way back to a lot of the typical stuff, go back to babysitting. I just sort of took what they gave me. When I had my very first salaried job, it was at a think tank studying, believe it or not, consciousness and money in San Francisco. I didn't negotiate my salary, and I'm not going to say, oh, I was scared to negotiate my salary. The truth is, it didn't occur to me, Carrie. It didn't occur to me. They offered me, whatever it was. I was like, oh, wow, because I was coming out of being a starving grad student.
Totally. I got a job. I'm going to take it.
I got a job. Someone's offering me this, and I'm like, take it, run,
Yeah.
And it did not even occur to me. And, as I say to people, I don't know if it would have worked,
Right.
but I didn't even try. I didn't put in a single counter. I didn't say, well, would you
I know.
consider, let's
I
add
know.
2,000, right? Whatever.
Yes.
Nothing. So, and I mean, I laugh now looking back on that,
Hmm.
although there weren't a ton of like internet blogs. God, that makes me sound so old. But it goes to this whole silent epidemic of under earning. I was so focused on the budgeting side,
Yeah.
right, that I wasn't sitting there reading, well, how do you negotiate? Well, how do you counter? Well, am I underselling myself? What do I need? Nope, none of it, And
Exactly.
I think through the years, I have worked hard at getting better at it. And it comes up. I mean, it depends on what the situation is. I try to make myself,
Hmm.
sounds weird, but let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Um, negotiate. It depends on what it is. If I'm buying like a real high-end dining room set at a consignment store,
Right.
that's a good example. All I need to say is, well, would you consider
I know.
2,500 instead of 2,700? Again, it doesn't necessarily work, and I try to be very gracious about it. But the shift for me has been, I like to focus on the fact that I asked. If
Yes.
I ask,
Exactly.
I am successful. I can't control the result.
Right.
I can't control if they say yes. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't,
Yeah.
But if I put myself out there initially,
Yeah.
and ask for whatever the situation is, then I give myself a huge pat on the back. I actually collect little polished rocks. And every time I get what I call a first success, Carrie, I ask.
Yeah.
I buy myself, they're like these almost like little robin's eggs from the store down the street.
Yeah.
And I brought the bowl home because I've been at home so much with the pandemic, or I'd pick it up and show it to you. But I love it because all these little rocks in this bowl represent first successes, things I have stood up for myself and asked for. I'd say half of them translated to a second success result,
Right.
and half didn't,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's me training myself to ask.
And to celebrate yourself, acknowledge that, that willingness and the practice of financial wellness. That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that.
I love
Uh,
having a physical piece of it too, Carrie. It's nice
yeah.
to catch my rocks, right?
Yes, exactly. And to have it as an inspiration as a coach and kind of thought leader in this financial behavior, that you are walking the walk. So yeah, I love that. I wanted to share a story about under earning because actually it shows how working with you transformed my pattern of under earning. I remember running around tutoring, house to house in the city, San Francisco, dealing with city driving and parking. And I also did this in New York, house calls. So then I was dealing with public transportation, which was even more out of control. I was always available to my own detriment. And I was completely exhausted and overworked. And worse, the money was still tight. And I hadn't raised my rates in years. And after working with you, I learned how I did the math. We did it together to figure out how much after taxes I truly needed to be earning. And you also encouraged me to write out my first ideal work-life schedule and vision. Like, what does balanced, sane, healthy Carrie look like? And what are the hours of the day?
Yeah.
In other words, I set boundaries. And a surprise to me was that I actually let some clients go when I stopped working at night and on weekends because our schedules didn't align anymore. And that was scary and it was uncomfortable, but it was the right thing. And you told me that doctors aren't available at these hours, so why are you? And over time, clients who were more than happy to see me within my schedule on my terms between 9 to 5, they showed up and my practice has remained full and at my higher rate, PS. And for me, it was really saying no and setting those boundaries. That's how my earning increased.
It's huge. I love that story. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that. That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
And it is about boundaries, right? I mean, we're training other people how to treat us all the time. And
Yeah.
when people say, well, I have all these clients at night, I'm like, it's because you tell them that you're available, right?
Exactly. Right. I don't have any time with my kids or my pet or my to date or yeah. So it's all connected. It's just so amazing how our decisions around financial decision making is so prevalent. It's in everything we do. So another major lesson that I learned from you is the 7 reasons to charge at the top. And this list um, helped me from that point forward after you taught me these lessons to negotiate for myself much more strongly at higher levels and with more confidence. So would you share that?
Yeah, well, so there are 7 reasons why you could say it's 7 reasons why I would support people in raising their fees.
Yeah.
Right. And I will go through all 7, and I just want your listeners to be clear, you don't need all 7.
Right.
You need 1. How about 2 if you want to feel really, really good, right?
Yes.
So one reason to charge, let's say charge towards the top or to raise your fees, is that you have a lot of experience. And there comes a point in everyone's business where truly you are a more experienced money coach, just as an example, than most money coaches.
Right.
So there's a reason why you should be charging at the top, because you're more experienced than other money coaches. Totally different reason would be education. Some people have a lot of degrees, you know, whether it's formal education or whether it's programs they've completed. Again, you're an example of that one too, right? Some people have one versus the other. They have a lot of experience, they should charge more, or they have a lot of education, but not as much experience. That's great. That's a reason to charge more, right? A third reason would be if your business is primarily referral driven. This is always an interesting thing. You know, when you have so many people that are calling you and you're thinking, where did they come from? But they hear about you, right? They're being referred from your happy clients or colleagues. That's huge. And that is a flashing neon sign that you should absolutely be towards the top of your market, right?
Yeah.
You're a hot commodity when you are a referral business.
Yeah, when people are selling, doing the sales conversation for you.
Literally, exactly. Oh, that's so well said. Exactly. When they call you and they're pretty much pre-sold because their friend Marianne said, oh my gosh, you have to work with Carrie, and here's why.
Yeah.
Then that would be, you absolutely should be charging at the top for that, right? The fourth reason is maybe the most obvious one. It's that you get really good results for people.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is an interesting one to dig into, because when you work with people, let's say you've got a professional organizer or a hairstylist, she may feel like, okay, I don't have a lot of experience, or I don't have this type of education, or my business is new, so why can I charge more? Well, if she's getting great results for her clients, which by the way is really all anyone cares about,
right?
It doesn't matter that she doesn't have this special degree or she's been in business X number of years. If she's getting results, raise your fees, right?
Yes.
Number 5 would be if you're specialized, if you're doing any type of niche service. You know, the way I would say it is, where else are they going to go?
Yeah.
If you're the only game in town, well, good Lord, you should be charging more money. Right?
Yes.
And then just a couple more. So if you've got, and these ones I think irritate women the most, the 2 I'm about to share. So one is you've got a really professional image. It's not fair, but people feel like people that look professional, have a professional website, have used to be the nice business card, or, you know, whatever it is, the nice office, must be good.
Yeah.
And it goes into pricing psychology. You know, why do we assume a really, really nice, beautiful looking bottle of wine is
going to taste better?
Going to taste better, right? But it's just human psychology. We just do. And the other thing is, it also, I would say, helps our clients relax and trust and enter into the work if they feel you radiating confidence because you look the part.
Right.
they can relax and go, okay, I am in good hands. I mean, she sure seems amazing and she knows what she's doing. So all that to say is it is important to have a professional website. It is important to do the things that you need to do for you to
Yes.
feel good that you have this good professional image. And that would be absolutely a reason why you can charge more money. And then the last one, the simplest and most irritating of all, is you ask for more money. You could have none of these,
Right.
but if you ask for more and raise your fees, often you will get more money. And it doesn't occur to people that one way to raise your fees, like, how do I know when I'm ready to raise my fees? Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. And so if you say, well, okay, give me some timing here. If it has been a year and a half, definitely raise your fees. Definitely raise your fees. You can raise your fees every 1 to 2 years. And part of that is that's just inflation,
Yes.
right? You have to do a cost of living adjustment, fee adjustment fairly regularly, or you actually make less money. So
Right.
if you ask for top dollar, you are more likely to get top dollar. So there's a lot of reasons why. And if you think back over all these that we just said, again, you don't need all of them.
Yes.
You need one to feel good about the fact that, okay, I can now raise my fees because I do get good results for my clients, or because I feel like I've got this special program I just went through certification.
Yeah.
I'm now going to charge more money.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Oh my God. The last one, you ask for it, is the same skill set as you request a negotiation at the consignment shop, right? It's really just showing up for the conversation and being willing to stand up for yourself, be honest, be vulnerable, because we know people might say yes, no, or negotiate. Even clients or bosses might say yes, no, not now, later, and that's emotional and vulnerable. And what does it mean if they say no? So you lose a client, or can you live on this salary for the next another year until let's talk about it next year, kind of thing. That would be like negotiating back. So yes, it's a nuanced process. And I also want to highlight that rate setting and salary negotiation is an inside job. You have to be able to live with the conversation and name the number and let it kind of hang there without the rationalization or excuses or drama. Talking about money is not easy. And your partner or friends or even your money coach might think, oh, you should charge $100 an hour, not 60. But if you're not comfortable with that, you need to do the inner work to find the sweet spot for you. Like, I'm ready for 80 an hour or whatever it is. So yeah, that was
I love that.
helpful for me. Yes. So I'm just double checking there on our time. We're going to wrap up soon. One last set of questions. I know you work a lot with couples, and I want to hear, or please share, what is your best advice for couples who want to be successful with money?
Couples, it's such sacred work. My mom always says, you have to keep working with couples. It's such sacred work. I think there are 2 babies in the world that I feel responsible for, because I worked with these couples and it reinvigorated their marriage, and then they had a baby, and I'm like, that's my baby. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is looking at how you can talk about money. I mean, that's the biggest key of all. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but one of the wonderful benefits of working with a money coach is learning how to talk about money. What's a process or a structure, and so you and I both work with our clients on how do you look at money together so that you can sit down and say, okay, here's what I see, here's what I need, but can we get on the same page around money? Yeah. I think that, and just to say this, and you know this from all your clients, about half of all marriages are made up of some version of opposites attract, right? Mm-hmm. It's the classic spender marries the saver. And this is not a bad thing. I want people to really hear it's not bad. You both bring different strengths. So how do you honor the different strengths that each person brings? And so to learn how to sit down, in my wonderful ideal world, couples would sit down once a month.
Yeah.
They would look at their money together and they would have a money date, the
Yes.
monthly money date where we review what we've spent over the past month. What are the big expenses that are coming up over the next month? That's a game changer, Carrie. And you know this, it's huge.
Yeah.
The monthly money date where you can review what's happened and talk about what's coming up. That's probably the simplest way I could sum it up.
Yeah.
It's great for couples because otherwise you are in situations where someone's walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
All sorts of different things happen. I'm always fascinated, Carrie, where you've got these couples that are so intimate, they're sleeping with each other,
I know.
but they're not talking about money or sharing financial details. And so
Yes.
financial intimacy, I think, is it's where it's at.
I totally agree. It is about communication in the end, being able to face your finances. This is a long sentence of alliteration. Face your finances with some frequency without fighting or fainting.
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah.
That just came to me. Anyway, yes.
New
Okay.
tagline.
Oh my gosh. And when things are more urgent, I'm just thinking, oh, once a month, like that would be nice. But when things are more urgent or you know, um, there is chronic debt or an uncomfortable amount of personal money being used for the family business, then I usually suggest that couples sit down to talk once a week.
I totally agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ideally, all of my clients sit down basically twice a month. They look at the plan.
Yes, that's the normal rhythm.
Yeah, that's the exactly. Ideally, we sit down in the middle and see what's the adjustment to the month plan,
Yes.
rinse and repeat, right? Absolutely.
Okay, well, we are going to wrap up, and this has been so great. Mikelann, will you tell us about your latest projects? What are you up to in your business right now?
Yeah, so people can find me at Seattle Money Coach, and I'm on all social media. So you can follow me on Instagram or your favorite social media, Seattle Money Coach. So this fall, I am going to offer a 6-week course for women on conquering under earning and stepping into earning power. So it'll be a 6-week course on earning power, and it'll go really deep into the hows and the whys and the whats, and really look at your mindset. Why do we undersell ourselves? How do we shift our mindset? And then what are the tons of wonderful things that we can learn to really up our earnings and keep our earnings high in a very happy way for our whole lives. So I'm super jazzed. I think likely, Carrie, what will happen is I will offer that 6-week course twice a year.
Yeah.
So if listeners hit my website at some point, Seattle Money Coach, and they've missed it, I would just encourage them to get on the wait list.
Yes.
Because it'll open up again, and it's just super exciting.
Congrats. That sounds amazing. And anybody that is seeking a breakthrough and education on the topic of earning, sign up for that. Is it women only? I didn't catch that.
That course will be for women, correct?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Congrats and good luck.
Thank you. Yeah.
And thank you. Thank you for your time and for being here today. This was really fun.
I love it. Yeah, you are a great interviewer. You're going to have so many wonderful interviews in front of you. Your listeners are very lucky.
Oh, thank you. And with that, we're out of time. Thank you again for tuning in, and please acknowledge yourself for taking the time to learn, practice, connect, and receive support about money. I am Carrie Friedberg, the SF Money Coach. You can find me, information about my coaching practice and my Personal Finance 101 course, which includes a free membership site at sfmoneycoach.com. You can also sign up for my mailing list on my website so I can keep you in the loop. And if you have any questions or comments, you can reach me at Carrie at sfmoneycoach.com. Bye-bye. We'll talk soon. And with that, we're out of time. Thank you again for tuning in, and please acknowledge yourself for taking the time to learn, practice, connect, and receive support around money. I am Carrie Friedberg, the SF Money Coach. You can contact me and find information about my coaching practice
online course and financial literacy membership site at SF, as in San Francisco, sfmoneycoach.com. Please reach out if you have any questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you. We'll talk soon.